Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot coming at you with the weekly comic book roundup. We've covered this week's X-Men books, as well as a couple others. And now it's time to move on to our next batch. Kicking things off, we've got Edge of SpiderVerse, number 1. The Edge of SpiderVerse miniseries, which, well, this is the first issue of, is going to be largely anthology stories. Each issue will have multiple stories, each one focusing on a different Spider Totem character. In many cases, introducing it more than introducing some. It's supposed to be leading up to another Spider-Verse story, which I believe will be kicking off in the pages of the upcoming adjectiveless Spider-Man title that Dan Slott and Mark Bagley will be working on. So, anyway, so our first story is set on Earth 1740. Appears to be during the Revolutionary War. Some redcoats were stealing a goat when they're stopped by Spider Laird. Also, it's made clear that at least one of those involved is supposed to be that or analog of Fancy Dan of the Enforcers. But after defeating Fanciful Dan and his cohort, Spider Laird is met by Madam Web and 2 others. And Madam Web shows them that they're travelers along the Great Web, and shows basically an image of various spider totems throughout the Spider-Verse. Miles, Peter, Kane. A lot of them doesn't just be alternate costumes for Spider-Man, like the spider armor, the black suit, Cosmic Spider-Man. But yeah, also the Iron Spider costume. Then we've got Aranya on Earth 616. Aranya most recently has been appearing in Black Widow. She's back in New York, however, starting college. She goes after some convenience store robbers and falls. Her costume's torn, and her totemic tattoo has reappeared. Goes back to her dorm room and crashes. Wakes up the next afternoon. She has a dream that night of Madam Web, simply saying they have returned, and wakes up with webbing everywhere. Her roommate explains that they're going to a metal show that night, but there's a bunch of vermins attacking loose in Central Park. Rania deals with them, but only just, and once again is face-to-face with Madam Web. Tells her what's going on, a little bit about what's going on, explaining that Aranya's powers are in transition, coming back to their true totemic self. It's not exactly a painless process, though, and it also is one that goes unnoticed. But the Sisterhood of the Wasp is apparently back, and they were behind the vermin attack. But Aranya gets a new costume, and she goes to the metal show, where a new initiative of the Sisterhood of the Wasp is looking to up her standing in the Sisterhood. Aranya takes her down, and then Madam Web shows up, and the two step through a portal. Next up, we get a newly introduced Spider-Man variant, Spider-Rex. So the story really just kind of tells Spider-Rex's story, or his origins, so to speak. Yes, it's a T-Rex. It's a Spider-Man T-Rex. I love it. It's absolutely ridiculous, and I love it in the best ways. His nemesis appears to be a green and purple pterosaur. Who has minions, of course. However, when Spider-Rex stops the Tyranna Osborn, I guess, he falls on some, as he puts it, innocent dino standards. And Spider-Rex blames his recklessness for that. With Aranya watching from above the trees and asking, "What the fuck?" So, fair. That next we have a Spider-Man noir story. He saved a young. As Spider-Man Noir, he saves a young woman, then does what he can to help her out as Peter Parker. He's trying to help her figure out who she was. But it's apparently she's actually Shathra. And she does what Shathra did. And she defeats Spider-Man Noir and leaves him somewhat changed. I'm assuming Shathra is not a character I'm that familiar with. But Mary Jane comes to check on him, and he says that he's not afraid anymore. And then the next issue looks like we're going to be getting the new Spider-Man UK, Ghost Spider, and a story focusing on Shathra. That is where the issue ends. Interesting start to things. I think Spider-Rex is probably the best things I've ever heard of in a long time. I want to see more Spider-Rex stories, damn it. Anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got Spider-Man 2099, Exodus number 5. Technically the last issue of the miniseries. There's still going to be a bookend one-shot to wrap the story up, so... Fallen Celestial has created a garden in the U.S. The Cabal is going after it. Spider-Man is doing what he can to prevent the Cabal from getting it, and also trying to take down the Cabal just in general. Especially when we learn that they're led by none other than Norman Osborn. This is seen Spider-Man recruiting aid at various points from other future heroes, including the Avengers of 2099 and Ghost Rider, among others, including the mutant Nostromo, and most recently Black Widow, who took out Hawkeye in 2099. So Osborn's crew has already shown up in the garden, complete with Sentinels. A few days previously in Undertown, the X-Men are headed towards the Celestials, or the Celestial Garden. Our X-Men lineup: Rogue, Power Absorption, Living Legacy. Tulkas, Adrenokinetic, Jolly Brawler. Cable, Time Sliding Soldier, Strategist. Cerebra, Biometric Telepath, currently depowered. Deadpool, Healing Factor, Allergy to Silence. Skullfire, Energy Dynamo, Devil's Advocate. Bloodhawk, Transmorph, Desert Myth. Phoenix, Pyromantic Regeneration, Provocation. Northstar, Navigator, Optimist, and Crystallization, Diehard. Cyclops, Line of Sight Transmutation, Morbid Horror, or Morbid Humor. But apparently there is a mutant within the Celestial Garden. So X-Men get ready to move out. Cyclops is hesitant to put his eye back in. So he put when they find a base of mountain of adamantium. He explains that he puts his eye in, and maybe he can transmute mutant mountain, or maybe he turn all of them into sand or air. And it seems as though Rogue has access to every previous mutant's powers. Within the mutant they discover are the pieces of one Nate Gray. But the Sentinels show up, and the X-Men take on the X-Men take them on because, well, that's what X-Men and Sentinels do, right? In the middle of the fight, Spider-Man and Nostromo show up, helping even out the odds a bit, and Spider-Man explains his plan to the X-Men. Cyclops transmutes one of the Sentinels into water, but sadly Cerebra dies during the fight. However, the battle has drawn out Norman Osborn. And Spider-Man states that to get to the Celestial Garden, Osborn and his people are going to have to go through him and the X-Men. And that is where the issue ends. Like I said, next month we've got Spider-Man 2099 Exodus Omega, so to wrap up the story, which will mostly be focusing on a fight between Green Goblin and Spider-Man, so that'll be fun. Hopefully we've got, it'll be full of guest appearances by the various other 2099 heroes who popped up throughout the series. Fingers crossed. Moving on to our next book, though, we've got Spider-Punk #4. So, where we left off, Spider-Punk and his band were on their way to DC. We had a recap of a brief recap of Spider-Man's dealings with late President Osborn, who it turns out is actually still alive. But apparently, there's a monument. So at the Lincoln Memorial, you got the Osborn Memorial. But the Spider-Man makes it into the outpost, and everything's up and running, and they're apparently or at least they've been being monitored. Rai-Rai's suit gets it's overloaded, and Osborn and his crew show up. Osborn, having taken a page out of Arnim Zola's style book, plus we've got Officer Venom, War Sentry, and Taskmaster. So, Spider-Man takes on Osborn and his lackeys, and they get defeated and imprisoned. The whole thing being that, of course, why aren't they dead? They wonder, because Osborn wants their deaths to be public. And the issue ends with the announcement of public executions of the Spider-Man, and that is where the issue ends. Oh boy, things aren't looking good for our friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Not in the slightest. Moving on to our next book, we've got Iron Man number 22. Where we left off, after a run-in with the mercenary Switchback, Iron Man learned of international black market called Source Control, dealing with all manner of high-tech weaponry. High-powered weaponry and technology. You know, the kind of stuff that Tony Stark makes when he's bored, basically. So he reached out to War Machine to see if helping to take down Source Control, and Rhodey revealed that a former colleague of theirs, Vic Martinelli, was somehow involved with Source Control. With Tony saying, "Yeah, I know he called me. I'm about to get him in. He can be our front man." Except for a slight problem. Vic Martinelli's dead. So we begin with a rundown of who Vic Martinelli was. Security chief head of security at Stark Industries. Let go because he lost a Model 1 armor suit. But once he was out of a job, Martinelli had to rely on unique specialties: covert intelligence, dark networks. He'd become an underground courier. Clients were whoever was paying the most at the moment. Transport some of the most top secret intel across the globe. And apparently pretty damn good at it. Years in, he worked for corrupt governments, tyrants, even shuttled back and forth as a contractor for Hydra for a bit. Hard to forgive that kind of association. But the scene of the murder, his murder, is analyzed by both Iron Man and War Machine's armor scanners, and uploaded into a computer. But they've got a new public face, Clay Wilson, aka Carl Walker, aka Force, who's kind of going back and forth between being good and bad. So, but get a line on the kind of stuff that Source Control sells out. And it looks as though Titanium Man was involved. Further analysis of some of the materials found include the Mandarin rings. But Titanium Man shows up, fights Iron Man and War Machine, and lets loose a nerve gas that Tony barely survives. Hellcat comes to see him. Cap comes to see him. Cap even asking if anything was going on, as well as saying that, hey, with Tony out of commission, we could really use you on the Avengers. But Rhodey says he's some time to clear his head. But the majority of the issue is Rhodey basically recording a letter of sorts to Cap to explain what's happened or what's going on in case things go sideways. As Rhodey and Tony arrive at Macau, and Tony's stealth armor is deployed from the jet, and that is where the issue ends. Okay, interesting. I really appreciate the fact we get a primer on who Vic Martinelli was, because it was clear it was someone important, but I'm never really been a huge Iron Man fan, so yeah. Anyway, moving on to our next book, we've got Batman Beyond Neo Gear, number 5. Where we left off, Terry had just had to deal with the Sword of Gotham once again, this time controlling the body of Detective Bean Booma, one of the few people that Terry was starting to consider an ally. At the Batcave, the Miracle Molly-looking gestalts are just kind of chilling when Batman shows up, needing and gets them to help Booma. They get the nanites out of her and even inject them into Terry to see how basically see how they might work. After a while, but Lumos is having another gala. Booma appears to be, potentially speaking, all right. They talk a bit and over a bottle of wine. Booma would prefer cheap wine, but, well, Bruce Wayne doesn't really know the meaning of the word cheap. He knows the word, but, figures a cheap bottle of wine is one that only costs about $5,000 or so, But Terry reveals his identity to her, and it looks like he's discarding the cowl for good. During Lumos's, looks like the next attack is going to take place during the next one of Lumos's galas. And the Gestalt had made a new bat suit for Terry. And that is where the issue ends. Interesting. I think we're nearing the finale of the series. So, moving on to our last book for the moment, we've got Flashpoint Beyond, number 4. Where we left off. Well, yeah, things were. Harvey Dent's widow had smashed up her face on the window of the viewing window into her cell, and Batman had found Professor Zoom's dead body with clock pieces inside of it, marking him as a victim of the Clockwork Killer. But meanwhile, young Dexter Dent has found his way to the Batcave. later, he manages to slip into Arkham, presumably to see his mother. Oswald and Thomas Wayne discuss all what's going on. And opens his mother's cell. During their reunion, however, a voice is heard. Meanwhile, Thomas is putting the clock back together. One thing is, it finally starts to become clear. Back at Arkham, when the walls of Dent's cell opens, and quote unquote a friend of hers comes out of the wall. Martha Wayne, better known in this reality as the Joker. Meanwhile, on Earth Zero, the various artifacts have triggered a blue shift, which what happens when the omniverse comes in direct contact with hypertime, when space meets time, so to speak. But apparently Bruce may be to blame for what's happened, for kind of preserving the Flashpoint timeline, even though he's trying to find out what's happened with his father. So, and that is where the issue ends. Interesting so far. It looks like the Clockwork Killer may be the Joker. Though I'm sure that probably misinterpreted that revelation. Anyway, that is going to do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying, live long and rock hard.